Hi, my name is Lily and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be doing the end of the year book tag. So I know last year a lot of people left this until November and December to do, but actually after having done it at that time of year myself last year, I realised that it's probably meant to be done a bit earlier because the questions are kind of more autumnal than wintry. I struggled to figure out who started this, but I will include all the questions in the description, and if you do know who started this, please let me know. But yes, I am going to be doing them, and it's probably going to be quite a quick video because there's not very many questions. So the first question is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? And yes, there's a few. I'm always currently reading a few different books because there are books that I will stop reading for a little bit and come back to, or there's a few audiobooks where I dip in and out of them. But the biggest one for me that I do need to finish this year is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I started reading this back in August as a buddy read with Izzy from Izzy's Busy Reading, and I just kind of got a bit slumpy with reading and was really struggling to motivate myself to read. So I said to Izzy to carry on reading it without me. She's now finished it, but I would really like to finish this before the end of the year. I've been really enjoying it, which is a surprise because I hated The Night Circus when I first read it. So yeah, I am actually really wanting to finish this, but I feel like I need to be in a good headspace to be able to read this book because it's so slow and it involves a lot of attention, and when my mental health isn't so great I struggle to maintain my attention on books, so this isn't really a great one for me at the moment, but I really hope I finish it before the end of the year because I am loving it. I won't give you a summary of what it is because I don't know. This book is one of those books where any summary you hear of what it is about probably doesn't accurately describe the reading experience because it's such a weird book that doesn't have like a proper plot, and like I'm over halfway through and I still don't really know what this book is 100% about, but I'm really enjoying the ride. So question number 2 is, are there any autumnal books you're planning on reading to finish out the year? Now, if you've watched my TBRs for October, you'll know that I've actually planned a very spooky and autumnal reading month for October. So there are lots and lots of books I'm hoping to read this month that are kind of spooky and autumny. One that isn't on my October TBR purely because I forgot to put it on there is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This is a book about a trans boy who is from this line of magical people. I believe the term for the males is Bruja, and so he wants to prove that he is a Bruja because he's trans by, I think he's trying to bring someone back from the dead, but he accidentally brings back someone from school who had died recently instead of doing what he actually intended to do. So it looks like it's going to be really good and really fun, and people say that it is a really fun read, so that is one that I'd really like to read, and I like the spooky Halloweeny vibes of it. Question number 3 is, are there any new releases that you are waiting for? And at the time I'm filming this, yes, there's one that I'm very stressed about, Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. So I'm sure this question is meant to be about pre-orders that haven't been released yet, but if you know the dates and stuff, you'll know that Once Upon a Broken Heart is already out, and my copy has got lost. It got lost in the post and there was an issue, so my tracking information wasn't put on it either. So I've had to get in touch with the customs services, and they've said they're going to try and send me a replacement that is still signed because they keep some signed copies in reserve for these kind of incidents. So that's what I'm still waiting on, and I really want it to arrive because Stephanie Garber is one of my favourite authors. Caraval is one of my all-time favourite series. One of my biggest regrets in life is not buying the Fairy Loot Caraval collector's set. Why didn't I do that? Why? I was such an idiot, honestly. But yes, that's one that I'm really hoping shows up eventually because I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know what other pre-orders I have coming up. Like, I'm really bad at keeping track of them until people hype them up. I think there's stuff coming in November that I should be excited for that I've forgotten about, but I don't know. I have a lot of pre-orders and I go through them routinely to check there's some that I'm still, if there's any that I'm not still excited for, I will then delete them. So yeah, I don't know. I think that the biggest one on my mind at the moment is Once Upon a Broken Heart. The next question is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? I won't be holding them up because I really don't want to have to take them off my TBR cart because it's kind of chaotically stacked right now. But 3 that come to mind that I'd really want to read specifically before the end of this year because I don't want to drag them out any longer than I already have are These Violent Delights, the Romeo and Juliet retelling one that I know there's another book with the same title, the one with like the roses on the cover is the one that I mean, Kingdom of the Wicked, The Midnight Library. those are the three that I'd really like to read this year, because I was really excited for The Midnight Library because Matt Haig is one of my favourite authors and one of my favourite people in general, and so I was really excited about that book, and I ordered the Goldsboro special edition. I still haven't read it, and so I'd really like to read that one. These Violent Delights I'd like to read this year because I have an arc for the sequel. I requested it not realising it was a sequel to that book. I don't know how. So now I have These Violent Delights, and I know originally I said I didn't want to read it, but now I'm actually quite intrigued because the sequel's summary sounded really interesting. And then Kingdom of the Wicked, I don't know why, but it's one that I just really want to read. It was gifted to me by Lauren from Fiction Tea, and so I'm really grateful for that because it's one of those ones I'm not sure I would have picked up by myself, but now that I have it, I have this really strong urge to read it, and I'm regretting not putting those three on my October TBR. The next question is there a book that you think could surprise you and become your favourite of the year that you haven't read yet? And honestly, I would be really surprised if any book beats Red, White and Royal Blue for me. That book was just so perfect, and I already really want to reread it. Another joint favourite with that one is With You Forever by Chloe Leese, which is another romance novel, so I would be really surprised if either of those two get knocked off of top spot, because I just love them so much. Looking at my TBR cart, which usually has my like highest TBR or highest priority TBR, I think Kingdom of the Wicked and These Violent Delights, if they were to become my favourites, I would be surprised, but I have an inkling that they might. You know, you just get a vibe from a book that it could become one of your favourites. I don't know what else. I haven't read Empire of the Vampire yet, but I'm not expecting it to be an absolute favourite for me. There's so many books I want to read before the end of the year that I honestly am just looking at them more like, so many of these could be surprise favourites because I have so many books that are surprise favourites. The one that I always think about is Lion by Saru Brierley. Which is a non-fiction book about Saru, who I think it's when he's 3 years old. He falls asleep on a train when he's playing with his brother, and he ends up in Calcutta, and he doesn't remember how to get home, and he becomes he basically becomes homeless and lives in the city for a little while, and eventually becomes adopted by an Australian family. And then it's his story of how he used Google Maps and his rough estimations from his memories as a child of how long he was on the train for, and basically he tracked the train tracks from out of Calcutta in all the directions using a certain radius of how far he thinks he could have travelled to try and find his home and where he came from, and trying to find his family again. And it's one of those books where I picked it up because there was a movie that came out, an adaptation of it, and I saw it in Costco, so I picked it up and I fell in love with, and like I thought, you know, I may as well give it a try, and it sat on my TBR for years. And then at that point in time I was using a TBR jar, and I would pick out 5 books from my TBR jar and like pick one from the 5, and that was the only one that kind of appealed to me, and I picked it up thinking I wasn't going to love it, and it was only a short book so I'll get through it quickly, and honestly it's one of those books that has stuck with me for the years since I read it, honestly, and I've recommended it to so many people. So I genuinely look at books and think you could become my favourite and I don't even know it, and there's so many books that I know I will never read that could have become favourites because you just never really know. So that was a really long way of just saying I don't know. So the final question is, have you started making any reading plans for next year? Honestly, no. Like, this is far too early, and also I don't really make plans when it comes to my reading. I just read. I'm thinking about if there's any readathons that are happening next year, and honestly I'm not sure. I know the Magical Readathon is going to be coming back in its 2 different parts, like the August and the April parts are coming back. Now that they're like an independent readathon of Harry Potter, which obviously is a good thing, I don't have that connection to the readathon anymore, so I'm not really that excited about it like I used to be. And there aren't really any other readathons I can think of off the top of my head that I'm really excited for. I might be doing another round of a Pixar readathon in February. Last year we did the Woody's Roundup readathon, and I've had people say, are we going to do that one again? But then a couple of people said like, oh, do this movie next, do this movie next. So I think what I might do is in February I rotate which movie I do a spin-off readathon for, and I've got a couple of ideas for 2 of my favourites. So we will see. I am really not sure though. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I found myself quite burnt out with booktube and with reading lately, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but I don't like to make too many solid plans this far in advance because I don't want to put the pressure on myself. I think the only thing that I will do that I know I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to stick with putting my reading goal on Goodreads as 52, because that means 1 book a week, and that is a realistic goal for me. And this year I've already gone over it. I'm on book 80 already, and it felt good. Like it didn't last year I kept upping it every time I met it, and then I upped it to 100 and I was struggling to meet it, and then I was putting this pressure on myself to still meet the 100, and I realized there was literally no point. So yeah, I'm gonna try not to do that next year. I'm gonna stick to the 52 again, and just celebrate if I go over. So those are all of the questions. I hope you found this really interesting. I do really like reflecting on my reading and what I'm planning. So if you like this tag, please just do it yourself. It's not one of those tags we have to wait for people to tag you. Everyone just does it. So I really hope you enjoyed hearing my answers as well. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. All of my social media links are in the description below. If you want to leave me a comment to let me know you are here, leave me an autumnal emoji in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Bye.